Greetings, my paranormal patrons. This is the Monstrous Feminine Podcast Patreon, a space where horrible humans talk a little bit more about horror. My name is Tyia, and I'm joined by my Coven,
Mila, Louisa,
and Zeba.
And this is our bonus Patreon episode. Thank you for listening, May Queens.
In this episode, we are continuing our doppelganger horror theme and talking about the 2014 Austrian film Goodnight Mommy, written and directed by Veronika, Franz, and Severin Fiala. In Goodnight Mommy, two twins become distrustful of their mother after her behavior changes following a terrible accident which devastated the family and forced her to undergo reconstructive facial surgery.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. Did you watch the movie?
I thought she just got a new face.
Plastic surgery or something.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Just because she was a TV presenter, I thought she was getting a whole new face.
I think I thought that initially, but they do reference the terrible accident.
I didn't connect it.
Okay.
My critical skills have really, really dipped.
Mila, I feel like you didn't understand any of the movie now. You don't understand that there was an accident.
I did know it was an accident. I just still thought, but her post-accident brain was I need a new face.
You did see the pictures of her before and what she looked like after. Did it look like she got a new face?
No, that's why I was confused.
This is one of the few movies that my mom watched with me for the podcast, and she's like, I don't think I would want this kid.
I haven't been around young boys that age, but they felt that's just how they all are.
Okay. No. I wrote in the notes of this film, which makes sense, but it's it's similar to The Lodge because obviously it's the same writers, directors.
Is it?
Yeah. We talked about Goodnight Mommy in our Christmas episode.
Wait, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. It's very much The Lodge meets Saint Maud with all the cockroaches, meets the Babadook because the kid's kind of annoying. And it's about grief and motherhood.
I loved the kid until he tied the mom up, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's about where I checked out too, Tyia, to be fair.
It's a normal point in the film.
Yeah, she said that as if that would be super weird. You're like, it's weird of me, but I kind of just liked him when he burnt his mom's face. Anyone else?
It was once it got to that point and they went in the bathroom, him and Lucas and Elias went in the bathroom. I was like, wait a second, no one ever talks to Lucas. And it was at that point where it's oh.
Was this everyone's first time watching the film?
Yeah.
Okay, it was my second time. It is actually really clever the way it foreshadows it.
My point of critique was going to be that what Tyia said about she realized then that no one ever talks to Lucas. Maybe it's because we went in with this being under the doppelganger list, so I was like, that's a spooky twin. One of these twins is going to be spooky.
I just thought they were twins for the sake of being twins.
I thought it was going to be the mom who had the twin, but then when they went in that bathroom and he was talking to Lucas, I was like, wait a second, no one ever talks to Lucas. And then I thought about when they were in the town and the guy kept asking him what is it, and he just kept whispering back and forth, and he would say something and the guy was looking dead at him but not at his brother, and I was like, he's not there.
You picked up on a lot. I didn't notice any of that.
I'm usually the kind of person who wouldn't notice anything, but I literally knew 5 minutes in that Lucas was dead or something, or a ghost or something. Because I was no one ever looks at them. That was going to be my main thing of why did they make it so obvious? But maybe I was just perceptive this time.
I knew that they had different names and I just accepted that, and I wasn't ever going to be able to tell them apart just because I'm me and I'm not very observant. But then when people were talking to them, I'm like, okay, they're not picking on one because I can't tell them apart. So I couldn't notice if one was getting special treatment or won't. The only time I noticed it is when what's the other boy's name?
Elias,
yeah, when he said point blank to his mom, why aren't you talking to him? You never, why, please talk to Lucas. And then I just rationalized it by thinking maybe she's mad at him for something. Maybe the kid one kid caused the accident and now she's icing him out.
I think that was fine, but for me it wasn't ambiguous enough. I was just I wish that they had, the scene where she gives Elias dinner and Lucas is you need to make two, or sorry, Elias is you need to make two, Lucas is here, or something like that. And I just thought, I wish that scene that she had I wish she had been feeding into the delusion a bit, because if she had made two and say she put the dinner maybe not where Lucas was sitting because she can't see him, so she doesn't know, or something like that, I feel that would have thrown me off completely. I would have been oh, okay.
I feel they actually did make it ambiguous enough, because I think it was more they were implying that it wasn't the mom, so she didn't realize she had two children. And so Like, when they played the little game and she was supposed to be the mom and she, like, didn't know she loved animals and didn't know she had 2 kids and didn't know her job. Like, it seemed more like that stuff was happening because she didn't know how to play the role she was supposed to be playing, instead of, like, the kid not being there.
I thought the game scene was really important for me being confused, like intentionally confused. Yeah, where she's guessing things about herself. Yeah, the charade scene. They put the name on their forehead, whatever that game is called. I was so fixated on that scene and, like, the mom being the doppelganger, or, like, not knowing who she was supposed to be, that, like, even when it got to the end and they tied her up, like they had that part where she was looking at the photograph and saying, oh, this is somebody who I was friends with a really long time ago. And I was like, okay, yeah, she's definitely been replaced. Like, in my mind, I was like, she died in an accident and like her, like, evil friend has replaced her. And
you didn't believe that either.
Yes, this director tricks me like no other. I am fully fooled every single time. Even when the reveal happens, I'm still convinced of the old thing. And so when she didn't know who she was, I rationalized it as, like, okay, if this is the mom, and I wasn't even convinced by the end that it was, like, if this is the mom, then maybe she got so banged up in the accident that she doesn't remember, like, what her job is, or she, like, had a I don't know, it's not a senior moment, but, like, you know, a brain slip up in that moment. And that's how I rationalize it. Like, truly, like, she was tied up, he was torturing her. I'm like, I still think that could be an evil twin. Like, truly, until the very end. And I was like, I see now that the house is burning. And if that was the case, she would have stepped in.
I think having this under doppelganger really ruined it for me, because I literally knew right away. I was like, oh, one of the twins has got to be evil. And then from there on, I was like, oh, of course he's dead. No one's talking to him. They're only talking to one. So maybe, like, I wasn't perceptive. I just knew that what this
No, I just play right into those directors' hands every single time, I'm realizing.
I think it's interesting that you thought the twins were going to be the doppelganger, and me and Zeba both were like, it's the mom. Because, like, I don't know. It's the way that they presented it. It seemed like it was her. And then when they showed the picture, I was like, she's really not giving a good explanation. Like,
no, she didn't. I was like, were you dating? Like, lesbians? Are they lesbians? Because the urge to merge is real.
Dressing the same, are they lesbians?
She wasn't trying hard enough to, like, get out of the situation that she was in. I'm like, clearly he wants you to say something that, like, indicates that, like, you are not, like, at least, like, lie to get untied up. I mean, she does eventually, but, like...
No, she doesn't do it well. He was like, oh, tell me what Lucas is doing right now. And she was like, I can't see him. And I was like, I would make some shit up. I'd be like, oh, Lucas is right there next to the fire. Like, you know what I mean? I would just fucking bullshit at that point.
I would have fed into the delusion that she is not the mom sooner than the delusion that Lucas is there. Like, if I was tied up, I would have been like, you're right, I'm not your mom. Untie me and I'll show you where she is.
But that could backfire. They could be like, okay, stab.
She wasn't trying hard enough. She was already tied up and they already didn't believe her. Like, if they wanted to kill her, they would have killed her. At that point, I would have just said anything to get out of it.
I think in her mind, I don't think she ever thought it was going to get, like, that far.
As soon as she was tied up,
when they glued her lips shut, I think at that point I would have probably been like, okay, this is bad. Like, this kid is too far gone.
I have a similar thing with this film, which I did with The Lodge, which is like, I don't believe that these kids could be that evil. Like, when he straight up pulls out tying her up, sure, but he pulls out a magnifying glass and starts burning her face. I think this one is more believable than The Lodge in terms of, like, children's behavior, just because I feel like, obviously you had Elias, who is still, like, doubtful about it may or may not being his mom, so he felt like there was moments of tenderness where he'd feel bad or guilty, and, like, when he did want to, like, feed her and he had to cut her mouth open again. But whereas in The Lodge, they straight up stuck to the prank, and then they were like, oh, crap, she's going to kill us, you know? Like, there wasn't, like, a lot of, I feel bad.
It's weird because their motivations are actually the same. It's both, in both films, it's grief. But I was about to say, yeah, but I actually sympathize a lot more with Elias than in The Lodge. The Lodge I found completely, like, I found it so, like, unbelievable, the whole thing. But then with this film, I was like, yeah, you know what? He's grieving for his twin brother. Go ahead.
That kid isn't evil. He's going through, like, some kind of trauma-induced psychosis.
I don't know if I necessarily sympathize with either of the kids in either of these movies. In The Lodge, the kids, like, definitely took it too far, but I think whether intentionally or unintentionally. These films do a really good job at showing how, like, if you give kids like an other to be skeptical of, they will do the most extreme things, like united together. Because like the way that they just pretty much made this lure up and like putting roaches in her mouth when she slept, which for me,
how did she not wake up?
Because I don't think it was real. It wasn't real.
Do you think? Okay, that's the only explanation. She would have
that could be
choked on that
wrong.
roach, and I was straight up heaving watching that scene. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it was so gross.
I didn't mind that. I was like, okay.
Yum yum, protein.
Ew.
some moments I literally was like, I have to walk away.
What did your mama say?
She felt very similarly. We were like, this was a lot. Like, this was too much on a Sunday morning. He had to kill the cat, if you think about it, and then assume that she did it. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe we're meant to believe that he killed the twin in an accident. Maybe he actually did kill his twin. And that is, like, some of what's going on. Because, like, a lot of the behavior he exhibited through the movie reminds me of, like, how they say, like, signs of serial killers when you're younger. Like, fire and all the weird stuff that he does.
Collecting roaches.
He makes the little boy in the Babadook look normal.
Why was she acting different? Because, like, he said, like, my mom sings me songs, my mom plays with me, my mom tells me stories, she's super fun.
She lost a son, she lost her face.
I understand that, but, like, this, like, it was not clicking for her why he did not recognize her. Like, her whole face is covered, and she's like, play outside and don't let any light in and don't, like, make any sound. And, like, that is, like, what I assume is very different from how she was before. Like, starkly different. And I get that, like, she's mourning. Maybe she had some brain damage, like, whatever. But that, more than anything, is what led me to believe that this is not the mother. There must be somebody else who, like, doesn't even know what's expected of her. Like, if he's saying, like, what's the favorite song and she doesn't remember it, if she doesn't know it, like, that would be scary to me as a child. Like, the things that we share you don't even remember. Like, why didn't she remember what his favorite song was and just said, oh, it's this lullaby?
Yeah.
I think she didn't want to participate in it because actually what I thought happened was, like, they had the accident, Lucas died, and this was like her injuries were from a previous incident of him, like, imagining Lucas being there and doing something to her. So I interpret as, like, she was so annoyed with having to, like, play along with it that by the time she came back, she was just, like, fully tired of him and also grieving.
I assumed that he died in the accident that she was injured in.
I thought there was, like, an accident that Lucas died in and they were both grieving, and then he caused some sort of accident separately with her from her playing along before, and that's why she was so, like, on edge the whole time.
I feel like you did a lot of writing there, Tyia.
Yeah, his hostility towards her was that her face was covered and he didn't believe it was her. I don't think before that he was feeling, like, hostile towards her for any particular reason. It's just that he genuinely believed it wasn't her. And I don't think he would have thought that had she not looked different.
Lucas was, like, the main one who was egging him on, saying it wasn't her.
But that wasn't Lucas, that was Elias's darkest thoughts. Or his, like, paranoia about his mum.
On his own, when he's not having that shadow thought there, like, he's fine. But I imagine, like, it would be exhausting to be trying to grieve your child and then play along that the child is still actively there.
Which is why I kind of wish they showed it a bit, like showed her play along for initially, because they only showed her being fed up with it, and I wish we had a moment where she did play along.
That's why I was like, maybe she was injured in, like, another accident from her playing along, because when she was, like, on the phone yelling to the doctor, like, I'm tired of playing along.
Like, I don't think when we see them come home, they're coming home from the accident. Like, I think he had started having these delusions and probably seeing a therapist before they arrived home. And that is what she was referring to. Not that it's been, like, a long-running thing from a previous accident, just that, like, this is a new behavior from a new accident. And, like, I understand why she wouldn't play along, but I was confused why she was not understanding, like, his belief that it's not her. Like, it's one thing to be, like, grumpy and not want to do the things that you wanted to do. It's another thing to not remember it being a different way before. Like, she was acting like why would you expect me to read you stories and sing you songs, as if she never did that.
I suppose. I read an interesting review from Tracy Moore for Jezebel, and they were talking about how this article was essentially about how they think, and this is why as well, that I think there's a strong Babadook allusion, but basically this film's kind of a little bit about the selfishness of motherhood. They said Goodnight Mommy captures the complex, interrelated demands of motherhood, notions of female beauty, and the tension between so-called selfishness of still catering to yourself as a complex, contradictory person while performing a consistency of presence that motherhood demands. And it basically goes on to say, like, as soon as she falls off, and she really falls off, to be fair, but as soon as she falls off her role as a mother, it costs her dearly, because he no longer, like, it's kind of, the damage is irreparable, right? Like, you can't go back. They no longer believe her. And this person, like, goes on to say, like, her, like, sneaking away because she needs a nap, or her wanting to sleep, or her masturbating and saying that she needs rest and silence. And she said these things become premium even when your children are not secretly plotting to prove you are some sort of interloper. The film's ability to portray these private desperate acts as both critically necessary to her survival, yet also as an utter betrayal of her children's need for her presence, love, and affection was masterful. So it's basically like she needed to heal, and I think during that time she became, well, to be fair, she was also abusive. Like, she locked Elias in a room for like days and hit him, and yeah, so she didn't just like steal a couple selfish moments. But I do think this kind of touches on a little bit of a point, as like the second she like doesn't uphold any motherly duties and actually goes against that in many ways, like against what you would think of as an ideal mother, she kind of loses her child's trust and can never get it back.
I did like the sort of archaic mother nature running naked in the woods.
Why did she do that? Because in the end, she's not an imposter. So I was like, so why?
I think that was one of his dreams. Or her dreams.
Because obviously the face, like, dissolving, vibrating, whatever it was doing, didn't happen. So it seemed more like, I guess, a projection of, like, how they viewed her. I don't know if it's how she viewed herself. I don't think we got anything from her point of view.
It was a bit creepy to be sort of told what she was like before, never having seen it. Once I realized that she was like a TV presenter and that she was like this very like loving, bubbly, nurturing mother before, I like could not even imagine it. I'm like, she has to be like perky to be, you know, this even like D-list TV presenter. And even thinking about, like, their house, it was a gorgeous house. I loved the house. And, like, looking at all of it, this was what I was saying about, they closed the shutters. I was like, no, the natural light in that house would be beautiful.
I know, you could have so many houseplants. I would go nuts.
It was like, just even that is, like, an indication of her character. Okay, she's, like, wealthy enough to be a single, well, she's not, we don't know where the father is. Do we know?
I think she said they were separated when the priest brought them home. Honestly, like, she's going through it. Her child is dead. Her husband then left her. Like, this is a lot. So I can see why she would definitely fall off. The thing that was confusing to me is, like, the movie kind of went so hard at, like, trying to show the audience that, like, she was an imposter, and that, like, when you find out she's a real mom is confusing in a way. I think maybe, like in the Babadook, it was clear that she had animosity towards the son because she blamed him for what happened. But in this, we don't really know what happened, so we can't necessarily imagine how she may feel about him because of the accident. So I think maybe when she tells him, like, she doesn't blame him, that's the only indication that we get that, okay, maybe this was seemingly his fault, what happened to his brother. And she was angry at him the whole time in the movie. And, like, her having resentment towards him was why she was, like, irrationally behaving and being like, why would I sing you a song? You killed your brother. But before that, like, as a viewer, you're like, why is she being so mean to her child? Like, why is she abusing him and snatching him by the arm and dragging him up the stairs and slapping him? Like, it seems very strange, like, to imagine that that's their real mom treating him that way. So I think, like, in their attempt to make it look like it wasn't the mom, when you found out that, like, it is, and there's no background to, like, what the true accident is, it's just confusing. Because you don't understand, why were you so violent towards your child, and why did you suddenly hate animals? Like, I understand that, like, people change from grief, but I don't know if they fundamentally change everything about them and, like, their entire behavior.
I think I assumed that she wasn't, like, Zeba, you were saying how you were confused at the, like, drastic change if the mother was once very loving and bubbly. I think I assumed that the change was a lot more subtle and she was always a little bit cold and detached, but now she was, like, more violent. So I think that's why in my head I, like, slotted in the, oh, she's just, like, getting a new face because why not? Like, I just sort of like ignored that sort of plot hole of why would she change so drastically, and then we don't even get like a glimpse of it apart from when the kid's like, you're not our mom, you're different.
I feel like I didn't have that experience at the end, Tyia, that you did, because I had, in fact, kind of the opposite experience, because I was like, from the get, like, oh, she's the real mom the whole time. But if anything, it did make the torture a bit more uncomfortable, because I was like, I know that's the mom. Like, that is the mom. What are they doing? What are they doing? But in terms of tension, in terms of like pacing, I think the pacing was messed up for me, because I wasn't ever like, oh, it wasn't ambiguous for me. So I was just like, okay. So I didn't really have that same experience at the end of like the confusion that you're talking about, because it was more like I was rationalizing her behavior as I went through the film, because I was like, that's the mom and this is the spooky twin in his ear, like giving him the like little devil on his shoulder. So it's just interesting how we watched like the same film but had like completely different experiences of it.
I do feel like once you realize that the twin is the evil one, like the way that the movie plays is really different. So I can imagine like it was super different for you from the beginning, because like the entire time I was watching it up until they started the torture scene or whatever, I was like, oh, like the twins are so sweet. They're like always there for each other. They're adorable little boys. But then like once you realize that he's dead, you realize Lucas is kind of like always in the shadows and encouraging him to do weird things. And he's the one who doesn't ever want him to be sympathetic, and he's the one who keeps grilling it that this isn't the mom. He's always got like a weird smirk on his face, and I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. He was creepy the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's why I was like, oh, he's just a spooky twin.
But that was our critique of The Lodge, was it lacked ambiguity, is that there's no negotiation between like the truth that the film is feeding you and then the like plot twist. So they don't quite have like the subtlety of like, which one is it? Because you're like, no, it's this one. But then they're like, no, it's the other one that doesn't actually like land as smoothly.
Also, I think like the way that they open this movie is what made me immediately assume it was the mom, because I was like, oh, they're doing some like weird post-Nazism experiment on the mom, and they switched them.
They have the Von Trapp family singing, yeah.
You were just writing whole prequels and sequels, weren't you?
So I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, the mom's kind of a semi-famous public figure. So maybe like some random person was obsessed with her in the hospital, and they switched her out with this lady who was like also equally obsessed with her, who used to be a friend. So when I realized that like the boy was dead, I was like, so is this family at the beginning, I guess, like to show the ideal family?
I read some interesting stuff. Ryan Gilbey for The Statesman talked about like the Nazi references and basically says,
what Nazi references?
All right, we're gonna get into it.
There was a Nazi flag hanging in the beginning when the Von Trapp family was singing. It was hanging in the background. That's why I thought it was like one of those weird Nazi experiments.
The sci-fi tangent that you're going on is where you lose me. But the Nazism, yes, because also at the beginning, or in the middle-ish, like she's like, why do you need a lighter in your bed? And he's like, I'm going to go burn books.
Oh, I guess.
Yo, when he said that, I would be, if my child told me that they were going to burn books... Yo.
Do you work in publishing?
It's fucked up, either way.
Okay, but there is a Nazi point. Ryan Gilbey for The New Statesman talks about this, and he's basically talking about, along with the film of disappointing motherhood in general, like in the literal sense that she is failing as a mother, it talks about, again, like disappointing motherland, of like what happens when your country is like letting you down. And apparently it was shot in Lower Austria.
How does that like link to the film in any way?
So it was shot in Lower Austria near the Czech... near the Czech border, which is a region associated with Hitler's family. I'm reading here. And there's a strong sense that the horror of the story's heart is domestic. It is the motherland rather than the mother that has gone rotten.
Nazis loved twins also. That's like a thing, that they were really obsessed with twins.
Apparently the director, Veronika, Franz, last year said it was only 25 years ago when the Austrian Chancellor, Franz Ferenczi, sorry if I butchered that, first publicly said in Parliament that Austria was not the victim, Austria was guilty. And then apparently Ulrich Seidel, who produced Goodnight Mommy, happens to be Franz's husband and Fiala's uncle. Apparently he's made a lot of, like, his work has done a lot of stuff about, like, the country's psychology, like that kind of angle. So that's why this links a little bit more. But I do think there is, like, yeah, the fact that they're twins, the fact that they're blonde hair, blue eyes, the fact that there's a burning book reference, and the fact that it opens with that Sound of Music kind of Von Trapp family.
If they were not wearing Crocs, I would have easily believed this was in the 1940s.
And their house. Their house is the most modern, like, magazine. If you pick up a magazine for, like, modern house, it's gonna be like that house, right? But yeah, so I think, like, the Nazi references here are there.
I think it would resonate a lot more strongly with like Austrians and Germans. Obviously, we're very aware of World War II and all of the like historical context.
I also think it's hard. I don't know. I've heard that it's hard to make media like in Germany and Austria and places like that directly addresses Nazism without it getting like censored.
Oh, really? That wouldn't surprise me, actually. Okay, so maybe they're deliberately trying to be a bit more ambiguous with that reference.
They achieved that because I didn't see it.
The reason this film made me think of Saint Maud because of the like excessive use of the cockroaches. And when you think about it, they're kind of used in like a similar way. Like in Saint Maud, the roach has the voice of God, but the voice of God was the actress's voice dialed down in Welsh, speaking to her. So it was like, it basically was a symbol of evil, but also delusion. And I think in this film, we have a very similar thing of like evil and delusion, because obviously the twin is a hallucination of the brother's own making. So it's kind of like functioning that way. The fact that they're excessively surrounding the mother and they put it into her like mouth and everything, dream or no dream. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's just an indication of like death, delusion.
So I've heard that bugs, imagining insects like spiders and roaches and things, are one of the most common hallucinations for people who've never like had one before. Like if you're like sleep deprived or like something is going on, like it's common to like see larger than life insects and things.
I feel like there has to be something that's missing here, and it's that this had to be happening for a long period of time. And this, like, the way that she locks the doors because she's genuinely scared of him coming in her room at night means she has a probable reason to be scared of the child.
But she didn't lock the doors at the beginning.
It seems like the entire time that she's scared of the kid.
I don't know. I thought she was just kind of like pissed off.
There's also Kafka's Metamorphosis, which makes use, well, some say, they never actually name the bug, but like some interpret that bug as a cockroach, just from the description. And obviously that one is about a change of identity, which is interesting because that's what they think happened to the mother. Like they straight up think she was swapped, or that's not really her.
I kind of learned that the beginning of this film is very boring. The Lodge also had that like pacing problem, but for this film, like it actually works a lot because the end happens all quite swiftly. I think it's extra disturbing. The first 3/4 of it felt more like a drama, like a family drama, and then it was like, here's some torture.
It was a very slow burn. With The Lodge, I dealt with it because I'm not a visual learner. I need to just hear it. But the fact that I had to look at the subtitles and then I would get distracted and I would look down and miss like whole plot points. And I like look back because it was just going so slowly. With The Lodge, at least I could listen to it.
This film was really beautiful. Apparently it was shot in 35mm. And I just think it's a really beautiful film. It kind of captures like the boredom of childhood, like when you just like go outside and play.
Where did they get box cutters? They had like some, and a lighter. They had some dangerous stuff hidden away in the room.
I mean, they're kids. They're crafty.
When you like think of the stuff that he had in his room, I'm like, I kind of understand why she was searching his room now. Like in hindsight.
If you were to rewatch this film with the lens that I had to see it, then you would be like, her behavior isn't, I mean, it's bad when she gets abusive, obviously, but like her behavior isn't like that out of pocket when you know that his brother's not really there. You don't think that she's being abusive and ignoring one of her children straight up out of resentment. You just think, oh, she's a fed up mother who doesn't want to play along or pretend to see her dead son. Like, that would be traumatic in itself.
At the beginning, I was like, oh, they're just like regular 9-year-olds because like, I don't know, like we allow young boys to do fucked up things and just say that like every little boy does it. Like I was not alarmed by actually any of their behavior, not the stuff in their rooms, not the things that they did to bugs. I'm like, that's just how little boys are.
If I have a son, that little shit's gonna be watched the second I see some incel shit. Thank you for listening to the Monstrous Feminine Patreon. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, SoundCloud, and Spotify at the Monstrous Feminine Podcast, and on Twitter at the MonFemPod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We also have a TikTok. Go follow us at the Monstrous Feminine Pod for podcast clips and more fun. Brooms up, witches out.